All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's 11 o'clock Mountain, 1 o'clock Eastern. Just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today for the benefits of implementing AP automation in manufacturing and logistics. My name is Julia. I'm the Area VP of Manufacturing and Logistics, joined today with Daniel Cheng, Chief Digital Officer at PFI, as well as our guest of honor, George Hatzigeorgiou, CFO from Laurentide, based in Montreal, Quebec. Let's go ahead and get started. So some of the things we're going to discuss today, what business challenge was Laurentide facing? That's the first thing we'll be talking to George about. Why workflow automation and what impact has Laurentide experienced as a result of implementation? How will technology enable George's team to make better business-based decisions? And that's really the framework of what we're going to be talking about today. So Daniel will be leading the conversation with George. And for those of you that are joining us, please stay till the very end because we have a very exciting offer that we're going to be launching between $10,000 and $15,000 for attendees who register. So please stay with us till the very end. Should you have any questions for the panel, please go ahead and put that in the webinar chat. We will take questions at the very end. We've got about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes at the end where we're going to go over the workflow optimization project plan, as well as those questions that you put in the chat. And finally, next steps, call to action. Let's go ahead. All right, so our team is passionate about business outcomes. Under the Process Fusion umbrella, we have 2 separate solutions. We have PF360 Print and PF360 Capture. PF360 Print automates print infrastructure with print to physical and print to digital. Not only do we provide cloud printing, but secure print and scanning with the PF360 app. On the other hand, we have PF360 Capture, which streamlines processes, reduces manual labor, and minimizes errors, ultimately leading to cost savings for the company. Tasks that are repetitive or time-consuming can be automated, freeing up time to employees to focus on higher value activities. Process Fusion has been in business over 20 years and continues to lead and innovate technologies that inspire teams to work smarter, not harder. A little bit more about us. So these are our global enterprise customers. You can see here, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, lots of different verticals. And that's a little bit more about who we are and the clients that we work with. Security and compliance. So this is one of the areas that we are very proud of at Process Fusion. We are SOC 2 Type 2 certified, as well as ISO 27001. ISO 27017 and ISO 27018 officially certified. We are one of 200 organizations in Canada and 1,200 in the US to have this level of certification, and that allows us to also work with the federal government. In addition to that, GDPR and HIPAA compliance for healthcare are additional certifications that we have here at Process Fusion. So I'm going to pass it over now to Daniel, and Daniel's going to take over. Over to you, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Julia. I love this type of format, so I'm looking forward to my chat with my friend George over in Montreal. So the title of the webinar, we talk about workflow we imagine for accounts payable for the manufacturing and for the logistic sector. So a good friend of mine is actually, he did research for a company called Ardent Partners. Every year they publish a report called AP Metrics That Matter. So I'm quoting some of his research data that they have published for 2023. So basically, why are we here talk about accounts payable? Of course, AP is actually increasingly important in the executive suite, and according to the report in 2017, when they did this survey, they asked how important is AP in relationship to other functional improvement within the company. Back in 2017, it's 32%, and based on the 2023 survey, the result came back at 66%. And consider that accounts payable, automating accounts payable is very important or exceptionally important. Next, Julie. So here's some of the common AP benefits for the manufacturing and for the logistics sector by automating AP. And we'll hear, again, a real-life example from George from Laurentide. It will save time, it will save money, 100%. Improve supply relationship through timely payment. The manual error of manual processing. And what I heard from some of the customers, of course, is faster invoice approval to potentially take account for some of the early discount that's available. Compliance reporting back to the board, back to the public, back to the street is important from a reporting standpoint. So able to have visibility, full visibility, who does what when, who did what when, from accounts payable function is really important. And again, for if your organization are publicly traded, then of course the full digital audit trail is also very important from a audit standpoint. So this is also coming from the report coming from Ardent. They do survey all the people that participate in the AP metrics that matters. For all the common AP challenges, what are some of the most important ones that they see in their business? Now, this particular one is not a horizontal, vertical centric, so it across all industry sector. But I do believe, right, for manufacturing and for logistic, similar challenges will apply as well. So the highest one is basically the invoice approval takes too long. And it's not just taking too long. I actually talked to some of the our customers that are in the AP automation project that we work with them. Sometimes they lost visibility in terms of where the approval process was, right? And every business is different. Some approval are very simple. In fact, you'll see on my next slide, one key metric is called straight-through processing, meaning if the invoices that we receive from the vendors meet certain business rule, business criteria, there is no human touch required for us to do anything before it hit the payment stage. But for the more complex one, we see very complex approval process that, if it exceeds certain amount under that GL category, it need to go to this person for approval. If it is a capital budget, for example, it does require someone like George, who is a CFO, for approval. So the approval route could be very complex, and sometimes people go on vacation. The person that initiated that AP approval process simply lost visibility, right? Of who is doing what and when, right? They have no visibility. The second one is the high percentage of exception that need to be handled. PO doesn't matches, invoice amount doesn't matches the expected amount, so on and so forth. So 45% people responding saying that high percentage of exception is a common challenges. Late supply payment, from I guess from a cash flow standpoint, it's good, but from an AP standpoint, sometimes you do need to maintain respect that payment terms with the supply to maintain that relationships. And the last one, and George and I did touch on that, the invoice processing cost, right? If I were to ask the audience, right, do you know how much does it cost to process an invoice, taking into consideration the labor cost, taking into consideration any system cost for your organization to process a single invoice? Next. So some of the common challenges that we do here for all sector, including the manufacturing and logistics sector. The first one is the big one, is manual data entry. So it does require your staff, the AP clerk, to manually process an invoice. And again, we are not a robot, so we don't work 24/7. So there is a time cost to that. Invoice missing, I heard about that. I seen it myself. The delay orders, the delay approval, and sometimes I think it actually costs more work for people to chase down where are we, right, with the approval process. If the approval required like 2 or 3 serial or parallel approval, like where exactly are we in the process? And the lack of visibility is driving senior management crazy, right? Matching error, supply management issue, late payment and payment errors. And then, of course, for certain industry, again, one of the very popular industry that we excel in is actually in grocery supermarkets. So there's a lot of early payment discount that can be taken advantage of. So, think about some of the Canadian, the largest supermarkets, they use our system. So they use that to basically accelerate that early payment discount visibility. Next slide, Julian. Okay, so here are some of the key metrics. And this will apply to manufacturing and logistic sector. So the key metrics based on the 2023 Allen Partners key metrics that matter reports, for the people that responded to that survey, 40% are manual, 50% of the invoices coming in are electronic. When I say electronic, it could be email. So it could be a PDF attached to an email. We consider electronics. The average time to process an invoice is 10.9 days. So for those who are actually in charge of AP processes, think about your organization, right? How many days does it take on average for you to process an invoice from the time that the invoice received in an inbox or received in an envelopes? The average cost to process an invoice is $10.18, or this is in US dollars. And then in terms of a very important metric, it's called straight-through processing, STP. So straight-through processing is the amount of invoices that are coming in. For 100 invoices coming in, how many invoices do we need to do exception handling, right? I need to have the AP clerk pick up the phone, call the supplier and say, how come, well, we order 5 mouse and we only got 4, right? That exception handling. So in terms of straight-through processing rate right now, for all the respondent is on average, they can, 3 in 10 invoices can get to the straight-through processing rate. 7 of them does require some type of manual intervention before they can actually pass that invoice into the payment stage. Okay, so we will revisit some of the metrics when George and I get onto the conversation. So basically, a little bit about the automation platform that Process Fusion has. Julia talked about the PF360 Capture, PF360 Print. They all have a former name. When George actually gave us the project, it was called Capture Point. And then, of course, on the print side, the historical branding was under Unit Print. So it's a merger of the two software companies in Canada that form Process Fusion. So we are in the process of rebranding everything under the Process Fusion brand, so PF, Process Fusion 360. So quickly about the PF360 Capture. So basically, you think about this as the intelligent capture engine. We are here to talk about AP automation, but it can be used for other document capture as well within your organization, into whatever your core system is. So I'm sure everyone on this call has a financial system, ERP system, from the really simplistic, the Microsoft Dynamics to the more complex Oracle or SAP, to the very industry-specific vertical application. Well, in the case of George, it's called IFS. So basically, we all have a core system. So the purpose of PF360 was created to do intelligent capture using what we call machine learning. So we don't want people to spend time coding or do any type of template setting to be able to recognize the documents coming in and able to extrapolate the right metadata. So in the case of invoice, the PO number, the tax amount, the total amount, the vendor name, et cetera, and then able to pass that data to the core systems, right? Whatever the core system is within your organizations. And we can do that through physical input, or we can do it through digital input. So if you already have a mechanism of people dropping invoices as an email, we can pick up from that email and then able to start processing those invoices without any human intervention. But if you, in healthcare, I know it's not this vertical, there's still a lot of faxes in healthcare. So we could also capture all the faxes coming into hospital for e-referral and then able to ingest and then basically process those documents intelligently and then passing it into the core system, whatever the hospital is using. So again, think about your core, whatever that is. We can work with that core systems, and surrounding that core system, we will work with some other tools that you might have invested in. For example, if you have a document management systems from SharePoint to OpenText to Highland on-base to robotic process automation to like UiPath Blue Prism, we can pass the data to those systems for it to eventually get back into the core, into your core systems. Just touch on a little bit on the right-hand side, on the print side. Believe it or not, we are still doing some type of printing. So basically, our cloud platform manages all print output from your core systems. It is really for a more complex printing environment for people that want to eliminate all the print server on premises. And our print solution is widely adopted in US and Canada and Europe as well for the healthcare sector. So we manage very complex printing infrastructure for big healthcare organizations. But again, if you have a printing challenges, do reach out to us and we can share with you what that looks like. So at this time, it is my honor to introduce George. I cannot pronounce your last name, but George. And George is from a company called Laurentide Control. And I'm going to ask George to tell us a little bit about more about Laurentide Controls. But the Laurentide Controls, because of our relationship with Laurentide Control, we find out later on that they are part of a bigger organization, which I hope George can share as well. They are part of a group called Emerson Impact Partners, and there are many organizations similar to Laurentide Control that provide services or solution over to Amazon industry. And of course, George is the CFO, current CFO for Laurentide Control. And without reading off his long and distinguished resume, George, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and who are you?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So my name is George Hatzigeorgiou. I've been at Laurentide for a little bit over 6 years, starting off as a controller, and more and more went into the C-suite a couple of years ago. I first got involved when I was a controller back in 2019 with Process Fusion. So just a little bit about Laurentide. So we're one of about 18 independent distributors of Emerson Electric's industrial portfolio to process automation clients. So any company that's involved in process automation, such as oil and gas, chemical, food and beverage, mining, any type of processing that's a 24/7 continuous process. So a lot of critical equipment is what we deal with. So we sell product, we sell systems, we sell repairs, we sell service, we do a little bit of it all. And so that's, I guess, a quick resume for what we do at Laurentide.
So George, I know you're not publicly traded, but do you mind sharing or not sharing approximately how revenue-wise or employee-wise, how big is Laurentide Control?
Yeah, we should be doing a little bit north of 150 now this year.
Perfect. Thank you. So that gives, I think, the audience a approximate size of how Laurentide is. So let's move on to our, weather getting warmer. So our poolside chat, right? Hopefully next time we do this, we'll buy a pool, with a margarita or something like that. But okay, so we have a few preset questions that I'm sure the audiences and would like to learn more not from prostitution, right? Because coming from us is a sales pitch. Coming from you is something more real. So basically, back in 2019, you talked about you were the controller at Laurentide at that time, and you started looking for automation of your AP processes. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
That project. What prompted you to start looking?
So back in 2019, we were facing quite a bit of growth. So that was one thing. The second thing was we had two accounts payable people. Then we lost that one person. We went down to one, and then we were making, I guess, a bit of a decision in terms of like how are we going to scale the business, and the number of people that it takes to process, and considering some of the issues we had. So we've grown about 50% in the last 5 years or so. So, and we were planning a little bit for that. And the second thing was we were just not providing really good service to our suppliers as much as we could. In our industry in particular, what we face is if we're dealing with, I guess, our non-Emerson brands, suppliers will block us if we don't have payment. And so we have to make sure that we've got payment processed on time because we've got to deliver critical equipment and products. So we were looking at that and we said, well, how can we, what's the low-hanging fruit? What can we do to improve? And then I have one less employee to manage as well. So we started looking at this solution, which would have balanced out our workflow and remove the manual portion of the invoice AP processing. So that was a very big part of our AP person when we had that one AP person is role. Because we were doing about 25,000 invoices a year. It was relentless. And so, customers or suppliers would call us asking about payment or this or that. And we just didn't have the time. We didn't have the time to look at stuff like price discrepancies, changes in or differences in discounts that were provided to us. So we were providing a very low level of customer service, and it was impacting a little bit our Dun & Bradstreet score as well. So we were looking at automation as the potential solution for that.
Well, thank you. I think that was insightful. So again, I think of course, the usual easy solution is to look for another AP clerk or maybe one more, right? But instead you decide to use technology to solve some of the business challenges.
Yeah, and the question was after, would you have to hire another one if you keep growing and another one, and you're not scaling at that point. So that was why we decided to implement software.
Yep. And of course, I know, I think I did back in 2019, I possibly did the one presentation to you, but I'm sure you just don't look at process fusion at that time. You must look at other solutions, I'm sure. How did you come to a decision to partner with us? And you can be perfectly frank, right, to the audience as well. And basically, and how was that decision of working with process fusion?
Yep. So I'll tackle the selection process. So we had, I think, about 5 potential solutions that we were looking at when we were going to do this, and we were trying to calculate the ROI based on the potential hours saved. And as we started delving into the different solutions that were offered in the market, we had, I guess, a couple of them. I don't know if I should name them, but there was 4 other ones. One, the interface was pretty terrible, and all of them, I think, required the use of a template. So you'd have to maintain a template. So if you had a PDF invoice that came in, you had to have a particular template for that supplier. And I didn't want to implement something for 50% of our suppliers and do the other 50% manually. And I think some of the solutions that were presented to us from those suppliers were, you have to go and purchase, or like they'll configure a template for you, or someone internally could configure a template for a particular supplier. And I didn't want my accounts payable person actually doing that, because I wanted them to process accounts payables, and their objective is really to make sure our suppliers are happy. So I wanted them to spend more time on the value add versus entering in things and reconfiguring templates for the text recognition software to pick things up properly. The PO is at the top right, and the address is here, and the total amount is here, and the taxes are here, and the currency is here. So we didn't really see anything interesting in those software packages. And then when we looked at Process Fusion, what was interesting was that machine learning algorithm where we didn't have to have templates. So that to me led the door to saying, hey, we could automate 100% of everything. So that was the reason why we went into it, and we did a bit of a demo as we fed the system some invoices. Result was pretty good. The interface was pretty good, and we said, let's do it. And we've been using it since. So I guess it's been 5 years now.
Perfect. Thank you, George, for sharing that. And I also want to share a quick story. I actually saw one or two questions came in, just reminding the audience, if you want to ask a question, feel free to enter that into the, Julia, they enter into the question section, right? Not the Q&A. I forgot which section they have to enter that.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I just want to make a comment about the template. So for the people that do not know what a template is, the template is a way of recognizing a vendor invoices. Of course, every invoice is so similar, but they are slightly different. So you really want to look for a solution that does not require any template. We talk about the big grocery chain in Canada, one of the bigger, if not the biggest one. They have over 10,000 suppliers. So the joke goes something like that. How long does it take to create a template for a supplier? Our competitors say it's really easy, only take about an hour to 2 hours each. So the really big supermarket chains say, well, I have 10,000 suppliers. So that means they did a quick math. The CFO pulled out the calculators, said that is approximately 10 to 20,000 hours. So he said that's equal to I need to have a person doing nothing but creating template for 2 years. So basically, of course, a template-based solution is really not for them. And I think this applied to Laurentide as well. One of the advantages of our solution is that machine learning capabilities, ability to recognize new invoices without heavy coding requirement of creating template. So moving on to another question. The question is really, George, you talk about Laurentide has experienced growth through the past many years, right? So, the question is, if you had continuing business as usual, what will some of the growing pain you were expected to see? And how would, I guess, a solution like us would potentially impact your bottom line and profit?
Yeah, I think, and I did touch upon it a little bit earlier. We'd probably be at 3 accounts payable people right now. We're still at 1 accounts payable person. So I think, if you kind of just add the cost there, I think it's pretty significant. And then there's all the time that you as a manager need to manage these people, or an accounting manager or controller to manage these people. So there's a lot of, and then dealing with vacations. And then the other aspect that we found out was quite interesting was our accounts payable people really liked not having to enter every single invoice. They say in Quebec, à mitaine, one at a time. So entering the PO number, entering the address, entering the total amount. None of that needed to happen anymore. So it was, I guess, a bit more motivating as a job versus doing pure data entry. So I think it's good from a motivational standpoint or engagement standpoint for the employees that are in AP, and also we see it scaling from a bottom line standpoint. So it's great to see that.
Perfect, George. I also I would like to tell the AP team that we want to make you to participate in more meaningful job descriptions than data entry, right? I think an AP clerk has a lot more insight in terms of AP function than just processing data entry and invoice into the core system, right? In your case, IFS. Next, Julia. So let's look forward a little bit, right? You experienced some automation with our platform, and of course the industry is changing. So what are some of the industry trends that you're seeing over the next 3 to 5 years? And again, in your personal opinion, right, where do you see AP automation could make a positive impact?
Yeah, this is what we see a lot with our clients. We've got a lot of blue chip clients, and they're taking the AP automation to, I guess, the next level with full-on portals and essentially having the supplier input a lot of that information and assist in that three-way matching process. So there's a bit of us doing their work, I guess you could see. I think the other thing too is we're seeing, at least I'm seeing from our clients, is that they're also, I guess, cutting down the amount of suppliers that they want. They just want reliability in terms of suppliers, and that also impacts with cash flow, because we don't want to have issues with not getting paid or not paying. So I think in general it's becoming more and more important, and it's also very hard to find people. I guess that's probably the biggest thing. Labor force is pretty tight right now, and finding people who are strong and make few mistakes, with a fully manual process is tough. And so when you can remove the human error out of that, I think that's a really good thing for the company, for the bottom line of that company, and the long-term sustainability of it.
Yes, and from my viewpoint, you talk about the supply portal. So we are also looking at that as well. One of it is, of course, you say shifting the workload over to the supply. That's one angle. The other one, what we hear, I also heard from you earlier, is Georgia, is that there's lots of inquiry about payment. So basically, sometimes the supplier portal, that our intention is also to allow the supply to self-serve in terms of the check is in the mail, right? So basically they can actually look at payment status or their invoice submission status, so that they have some status lookup in terms of where the AP process is from a supply standpoint to Laurentide, for example, in this case.
It's certainly one of the first things we do when we do collections, and if we're dealing with portals, we'll make sure we go in there and see what the status is, and we'll find
That's right.
Well, it's great, yeah.
Yep, and then of course we talk about machine learning. Of course, AI will play a even more important role in our product roadmap in terms of we'll be learning from GL coding, right? Like we'll have smart GL coding. So a lot of the more intelligent automation tasks will start come to the platform, and that's we will see not just for prosecution, but I think across the industry, AI will play a much bigger role in the solution adoption. And of course, we did not, George did not mention, actually the solution that we have deployed is a cloud-based solution.
Yeah, that actually is a good point, because when we were looking at suppliers, I think all of them said, well, you got to buy a server and all the associated costs with that, and you guys are cloud-based, which made things very easy.
Yes, and I do see one of the trend is, again, people are moving a lot of stuff into Microsoft 365 and a lot of the cloud systems that's available right now, and then we are born in the cloud platform. So we do see that trend continues, that there's more adoption on the cloud-based solutions, and then with the security that Julia mentioned with our cloud platform, we meet Canadian government's some of the most stringent requirements. So we are confident that we would provide the security that's required, even with processing your invoices in our cloud platform. Next question. Okay, so George, this is the last question. I have one more question for you, but any advice to the audience about to others, right, when they look at automation in general for AP, right? And of course, lots of people coming onto this webinar are coming from the manufacturing and logistic industry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if you are looking at automation, I think the first thing you need to do is map the process. And when we were having those meetings, we were able to start taking a look at how the process could look after we implemented software. And I think that made the ROI case very clear for us. So I think that's great. And I think it's, yeah, I mean, is there anything specific? I mean, to me, I think it's a low-hanging fruit, and you can kind of have it aside from any other integrated system that you may have. and it could work. It's, the first thing I'd say is like try to find a solution for all, because you don't want to have 2 or 3 or 4 processes for accounts payable. It's best you have one. So if you can keep it to one, that makes life a lot simpler.
Well, thank you. I think that's a good advice. And my parting question before we pass the floor back to Julia. So I talked about some of the AP metrics that matters. So throughout the 5-year period that we partnered together, have you actually looked at the average days to process an invoice at Laurentide? So if I'm a supplier to you, I submit an invoice to you. How long can I expect that my invoices will be ready within Laurentide? And then basically the follow-up question to that is, have you looked at, well, of course, there is a cost of implementing our solution. So our solution cost, you mentioned that, you avoided increasing your labor from your AP clerks from 1 to 3. So even with that one single AP clerk, there's a cost to that. So and divided over the average invoices that you process every year on our platform, have you looked at the average cost to process an invoice at Laurentide?
Yeah, so I'll take the first part of the question, which is the average days to process. So an invoice typically, let's say, it comes in on the 11th of April, which is today. Tomorrow morning we have a daily upload. So some of the software could either, if it has really high fidelity with the suppliers, it just automatically processes it into that file that gets ingested into our ERP, or it was manually intervened in the morning. So the way we're set up from a workflow standpoint is every, I think, 8:30 a.m. our AP person goes in, flushes everything that came in. From an invoice standpoint, that gets all condensed into a file, and we've got PDFs also. They all get sent into our ERP. So essentially, they get processed in one day. When it's a question of the actual receipt within our ERP software, when it actually receives, and then you can do the match, that's a different story, but we can get the system to put our invoices in our ERP and have them ready for matching in a day.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And the average that we publish is from the other partner is 10.9 days. And I can tell that they also look at what they call best in class, right? The best people that are able to execute the invoice processing. The best in class, according to other partners, the average within the best in class is about 3 days. So congratulations there. And what about the cost?
So we did a calculation not too long ago, and we think it was somewhere in between $3 and $3.50 an invoice. If you take in all our costs, so salary fully burdened and software costs to process our invoicing.
Okay, and again, I'm just looking at the report. So the 2023 numbers, oh, by the way, that numbers actually increase because of labor cost increase, right? There's a general labor cost increase across the world with inflation and the challenge of finding talent. So the average, the weighted average cost within the best in class, the average is $10, over $10 per invoice. With the average within the best in class is actually $3.12 US per invoice. And that is within the best in class. So again, George, I think given the number that you have calculated, you are within the best in class range with the automation that you have. So again, congratulations. And with that, on behalf of prosecution, I thank you for your time and spending time with us and with the people on this call. So back to you, Julia.
Excellent. Thank you, George. Really appreciate your time today. So what I had mentioned at the beginning is what we're offering to everybody on the call. So we are offering a half-day discovery and assessment, which is part of our workflow consulting program. So what that includes is half-day discovery and assessment, followed by a workflow optimization project plan for implementing automation. So the value that's tied to this is anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the size of your organization. So really exciting. This is going to be based on availability for the first-time companies who apply. So please reach out to me if this is of interest to you so that I can get you registered. Feel free to connect with either Daniel or myself. Here is our information. So Daniel, who's our Chief Digital Officer, and of course myself, along with my phone number if you have any questions or feedback. So Q&A, let's dive into Q&A. So these are going to be for you, George. First question is, can you tell us about your ERP and integration?
Yep. So the way we've set it up is that there's a couple tables that do a daily update from our ERP that get stored in the cloud so that it can pick up suppliers and purchase order information. So when an invoice gets processed by CP1, it picks up all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So and then once that happens, we programmed it once a day, but I think in the beginning we had it twice a day. A CSV file that has all the information of all those invoices that were processed in that time period. It was configured for our particular ERP in terms of the way it likes to ingest that information. And then a little workflow that we did with your team was all those invoices that got processed in PDF, we actually like to store those in our ERP. So there's a way we can attach them to the header of the invoice when we're using them. So once it gets processed, it actually shows up in a folder. And then once a day, those actually get ingested with an ERP specific, upload feature. And within the span of a couple of minutes, it's all there. So it wasn't a complicated integration. It was pretty fast actually.
Thank you, George. Hey, Julia, I got a comment on the Q&A.
Okay.
The Q&A logo are buried. So they want to see the contact information again. So you can just shift back to the contact information slides. They want to get the email. Yep, that right there.
Okay.
And then basically, I just saw the question, and I want to answer that question. So the question is Prosefusion a separate portal that every people involved in the approval workflow need to connect to? Also, is it a license-based solution? The answer to that is we do not license for any user that participate in the approval workflow. So one of the large logistic company in Canada, without naming name, part of Canada Post. So basically, they have over 600 approver that required to approve the invoice that we see that done the PO match, but they have a separate process for those people to approve the purchase rec. So basically, yes, everyone will have a need to get to the portal. An email would go out to them that, hey, you have a task waiting for you. So Julia, you need to approve this. So there's a link. They click on the link. You automatically bring them to the portal through AD or whatever authentication method, and then basically they take a look at what they need to approve, click approval, and then that will be done. So it's a very simple process. And then we don't license by the number of users. So hundreds of people can get on the system for the approval workflow. Back to you, Julia.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So the next question we have for George is, what was the timeline for implementation?
So my memory is a bit hazy. It's been a while, but I think it was like maybe 3 to 5 weeks. I think when we did it, and it wasn't too bad because the involvement really was with. Well, the first thing was we didn't want to freak out our accounts payable person, so we had them be involved a little bit in the process and seeing the software and testing it out, and making sure that they're not concerned about losing their jobs through automation, which is it's a very real thing. And then I guess the only other involvement was our IT team to get a couple tables up for the CP1 team to. Or the Process Fusion team, I keep saying CP1, but the Process Fusion team to, I guess, use that in their software, and then the rest was kind of built by the Process Fusion team. So it wasn't too bad at all. So a little bit of accounting, a little bit of IT, and the team was taking care of the rest.
And I would comment that 3 to 5 weeks, because George, you are very organized and you are a good person to work with. The biggest challenge that we have right now, and if I have any of the professional services people on this call, is that the customer are not clear what they want, especially in terms of approval workflow. They have not mapped out the processes internally, and you know that as you go, it can be very complex for both parties, right? So George gave a perfect advice, right? Get your process down packed, and then we can execute a project very, very fast. Oh, there's a question. This would be perfect for you, George. Is the software available in French? Most of my employees only speak French. Thank you.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, you do not know?
I don't. So I don't know if there's a different language. Ours is set up in English. It's not really complicated though. It's
Oh yeah. So then from a system standpoint, yes, our system is fully bilingual. Being a Canadian company, yes, we can of course have a French interface. And then the other one is that because of the way we don't set up template, our ability to process an invoice are not language dependent. So in the US, we see a lot of Spanish invoices, invoices in Spanish. And then same with our UK counterpart. Of course, you know, there's no dollar sign, there's a pound sign and a euro sign. So basically, we are language independent, but from a user interface standpoint, we do have a French UI for the PF360 or CP1, right, as per George. So, yep. Julie, back to you.
Excellent. Okay, so are we good for questions? No other questions?
I think that's the last question I see.
Yep. Last question? Okay. So that concludes everything for today. So George, again, a big thank you for joining us today. Daniel, thank you. It's been a great discussion. Just for next steps, we'll be sending out an email just regarding the workflow optimization project plan. So look out for that. And in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to Daniel or myself, and have an excellent day, and appreciate everybody joining the webinar today.
One last question, Julia. Will you share recording from Robert?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Robert.
We should be able to share. Yes. We will share the recording with the team. So yes, we'll do that over the next couple of days. So thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, George. Again, really appreciate your help.
Thank you, George.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.